Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Scan Pro Video and MediaCity Training webinars, which I've been doing. This is the episode 6, as I mentioned. Welcome along. You may notice that I have had a haircut. My kind and patient wife, Lucy, chopped my hair for me. Much needed. It's not a bad job, I don't think. It could be worse. It could definitely be worse, and it's definitely better than it was. So there's no debates there. As I mentioned, this is episode 6 of a 6 webinar series, and this particular episode is all about exporting and basically managing a project once it's finished. Once you've completed the project and you've handed it over to the client, or you've done it for yourself, whatever. I'm going to talk you through some of the things that you can do to manage that project and to archive it successfully. So for those of you that haven't been part of the other webinars, you've not came along and joined in on those, my name's Alex McLeod. I'm a certified Premiere Pro instructor, but I'm also a freelance camera operator and editor. And I'm a working editor that trains as well, so I sort of do 50-50 training and 50% editing. And it's good because it means the training that you give is sort of within the real world. And the training company that I run, that's what we try and do. We strive to use instructors that are working in the industry. This screen you can see right now is some of the clients that I've worked with over the years, some of the jobs that I've done, some of the people that I've worked with. Oftentimes it's been a case where I've gone in and done some training, but a lot of the time as well it's I've worked for them as an editor, creating content, either for TV or for online or both. One of the most interesting jobs I did was the FIFA World Cup. So I was in Moscow for 6 weeks. It was really quite an incredible experience. My knowledge of Premiere Pro has taken me all over the place, so it's good. And I'm trying to. These webinars are trying to sort of give you like bite-sized tips and little bits of knowledge that I've got over the years, and sort of steer you in the right direction depending on where you are with Premiere. So one thing you'll probably have noticed if you're working as an editor, if you're creating your own content, you're cutting your own stuff, that you go through a number of phases when you're actually working as an editor. And not only just an editor, but someone who's creating content and shooting stuff and production planning, that sort of thing. And the last series of webinars have been created to reflect that. So the phase number 1 that I've identified is you go and shoot the stuff, you acquire the material that you're going to work with, you shoot the material, you shoot your interviews, you shoot your sound bites, you shoot your GVs and your cutaways and your B-roll. And then the second phase is where you ingest and you organize and you store and you manage those assets. Phase 3 is where you make a rough cut, you finesse. You make a rough cut. You take all the materials and you stick them together on a timeline, and you get an overview about what sort of material it is that you're working with. You start to craft the cut, build the cut. Stage 4 is where you start to put that cut into a more sort of finer edged piece, so you get rid of all the rough edges and you start to bring things to duration. So if it's a commercial, it's got to be 30 seconds. It can't be any longer than 30 seconds. So you've got to nail it down, get it right, and that's where the finesse part comes in. Then you work on your audio, you get your mix right, you make sure that your music's not too loud compared to your sound bites, that kind of thing. Then you work on your graphics and your color in your online, and all these are things that we've covered in the previous webinars. So if any of these phases, if you want to get a little more of an overview about how I would approach these specific phases, then you can take a look at the previous webinars I've done. And then we're looking at phase 6, which is the delivery phase. So phase 7, which is delivery phase. And delivery phase is arguably the most important thing, because there's not a whole lot of point making anything if you're not able to deliver it to somebody. And so I thought I would make this webinar basically go into a little bit more detail about your options when it comes to delivery, because oftentimes you're delivering across multiple platforms. So it might be Instagram, might be LinkedIn, might be Facebook, might be Vimeo, might be YouTube, all these different places to to deliver for, and it's a bit of a minefield. Not only that, but you've also got to contend with codecs, and the sort of question is, how do you export in such a way where the file size isn't massive but the quality is still retained? Those questions. And so over the next 40 to 50 minutes, I'm going to go through and give you an overview about some of the things that I've found important over the years. So number one thing, and you can watch this back, and when you get a chance, if you want to revisit this and watch it back, but when it comes to exporting, and this is something I've done a lot of over the past few weeks, I'm working on some teacher talks, BBC Bite Size, and the volume of work is enormous, and you really have to make sure that you get this stuff right, because as soon as it leaves your edit suite, it's going to be watched by somebody, and that somebody is, they're not hands-on with the edit, so they're seeing it not with fresh eyes, but they're seeing it with different eyes. And so if you can in any way, shape or form, if you've got to view it with those eyes and not the eyes of the editor. But these are things that I think you need to check before you export. Is your film the correct duration? So is your film the correct duration? If it's 30 seconds, it's got to be 30 seconds. It can't be 30 seconds and 1 frame. It can't be 29 seconds and 24 frames. Got to make sure it's the right duration. Have you marked the right export range? Now, we'll get into that when I show you the timeline that I've got going on. Is the audio within the legal limits? Has it been mixed properly? Are all of your desired video and audio channels visible, audible? Is your colour correction done? And are you happy with it? And is it consistent? Does your film contain any flash frames? Are all of your titles spelt correctly? Do you have permission to use all of the content? I mean, that's a big one. If you're hoping to make something and you're using content with people who haven't given you permission, signed consent and release forms, then you may well encounter issues that they aren't happy to be in the film. It happens a lot in sort of current, not so much in current affairs, but in documentary and stuff. If you've got people in the back of the shot and they haven't given you your express permission to use those shots, then you aren't entitled to use them, and they can request that A, you take them down, or B, they can press charges. There's all sorts of implications. This sort of comes into the realm of compliance. Compliance is a whole different ballgame. As the editor, you're given all the rushes and you're given carte blanche to make what you want. If you're not conscious of compliance, those kinds of things, then it can be a bit of a problem. Also, has your content been signed off by the client? Now, that's another thing that's quite crucial. So, I'm gonna go and move into where I start to show you the desktop. And so, some of the things that we're going to start talking about now. I can hear my 4-year-old son Lucas, who has just come back from his walk in the park. So if the door does open and in he comes, then these are the traumas of working from home. Everybody. Normally I would do these from my office. Well, in fact, I don't normally do webinars, but if I was going to do them, I'd do them from the office. Anyway, I'll stop talking. So let me give you a rough overview about what we've got on the timeline right now. This is a promo cut that I did for scans, so they had something to sit on the holding page when we launched these webinars, and it's a rough cut. I mean, I would have liked to have spent more time on this, but a few things to draw your attention to. First of all, I want to give you an overview about the size of this project. So. The first things first is let's focus our attention over to the project. So if you've followed through these webinars and I've shown you some of the ways that I organize things, at the root level of my projects, I always have 2 folders. Number 1 for sequences and number 2 for media. If I open media, you'll see that I've subdivided media into another series of subcategorized folders. Rushes would be 1 I've got for native, 2 for transcodes, 3 for proxies, 4 for subclips, and then I've got audio, and I've sort of subcategorized all these. Now this project is quite big, and one tip for you: if you ever want to open up a project and see like the whole size of it, number one, I'm going to maximize the project window, and to do that, you on a PC, you look where your escape key is, and it's the tilde that's beneath your escape key. So one press of that, and you'll expand whichever window it is that your mouse hovers over. So if I want to expand my timeline, I can do that. If I want to expand my source window and program window, and so on and so forth. So using that key, by the way, on a Mac, you'll find that key above the control key on your keyboard. So take look to the far left, and look above the control key, and it's like a little squiggle or grav. I think they call it the accent or the grav key. But yeah, that's where the key is on the Mac. So pressing that will full screen. Now, to get an overview about how the full size of this project, if I full screen, and then I'm going to hold my Alt key, and in Mac World, you're holding your Option key, and I'm going to expand one of these folders. Now, if you expand this folder, let's expand that out there, it opens up every single folder inside your project. Now, if I zoom out and do a Control A, and that will select all of my clips, you'll see that I have 782 items within this project. Now, that's a fair amount. That's not excessive for me. I've done long forms where there's been in excess of 8,000 items within a project. And even in a project with that many items, at the root level, there's still only 2 folders, because I think it's very important that you, at the root level, you keep things tidy, and then if you stick to that mindset, you'll keep things tidy right the way through. Anyway, I'm gonna alt click and expand this, and then I'm gonna alt click and close them again, and that will close them. So alt click opens everything up, and alt click closes everything down. Now, my first, the reason that I mention how many items there are inside this project is, even though this is a project for myself, this is a promo edit for the MediaCity Training business, at some point I'm going to want to archive it, and I'm going to want to be able to keep hold of the assets that were inside of the project, and shed and lose all of the ones that I don't need. And so that's my first tip. If you ever get into a position where you need to archive a project and lose some clips, or not lose, but I mean, like, if these didn't get used in the edit, you don't need them, then that's where this window comes in handy. Now, it's you'll access it from going up here, and you go File, and you scroll down, and it's Project Manager. Now, before I open up Project Manager, I just want to make you aware about a useful and important way to work with sequences within Premiere. Now, if I open up my sequences bin here, I'll see that I've got these are pre-built ones, and if you saw episode 1 of my webinar, you'll have learned that I use post haste to build template folders, which is what I've done here. So I'm going to go to WIP. Now, WIP stands for Work in Progress, and if I open up Work in Progress, you'll see that I've got a couple of different sequences, and here I've got MCT Promo Edit April 2020, and then a MCT Promo Edit April 2020 V1. Now, here is a very, very, very important tip that I'm going to give you. It can quickly spiral out of control managing sequences. For instance, on the BBC Bite Size stuff I'm working on at the moment, we're doing, I think I've been tasked with doing 30 of these bite size edits. They're around about between 5 and 6 minutes long each. The amount of reversions we've had to go through, each edit, each sequence has gone through about 8 or 9 reversions per video. So that's 30 times 8 or 9. And it's really, really difficult keeping track of that. Now, my tip and what I've done for myself, and this is just a sort of sanity check type thing, is if I'm going to expand this window so it's full, these metadata columns, as an editor, these are your use these are useful to use. Okay, so there are different ways to organize these metadata columns. one thing you'll often find is if you haven't changed this, you won't find description in the metadata there. You have to go and find it and drag it over. So if I do a bit of a scroll across and go, okay, you'll see that I've actually got I've actually made myself. I've not made it, but I've put it within close reach. I've got the good box. So the good box is cool because basically, if something's good, you just tick it. And I use that a lot for clips that I like or sequences that are, that have been signed off or whatever. For whatever reason, if I know to myself that I've ticked the good box for whatever reason, it's going to be good. Don't tick the good box lightly. Ensure that the good box is only ticked when required. So that's 2 columns straight away that I think is useful. You've got description, and you've got the good box. If I scroll across here, I've got a couple of others which I find useful. Now, actually, I don't think I have the one that I wanted at log note. Okay, so that's useful. What you'll find is some of them, if I go back to my sequence there, some of them is, for instance, log note allows you to type in a note to yourself. Let's go with log note. There's probably a better one, but if I click and drag log note over there, you'll see that I've now got 2 options to label a sequence. So let's say, for instance, this particular sequence is the one that got signed off. So under description, I'm actually going to put in the time that it was last edited, and this is for edits that move quickly. This is crucial. So the time is so I'm just going to put last. You can see what I'll type here. I'm going to put last edited. I'm going to do a couple of parentheses, and I'm going to put 14/16, a couple more, and then I usually put a couple of characters there, and I'll put the date. So I think it's the 12th May 2020, and then that, and then anytime I come back to this sequence at any point, I'll know, okay, so that was last edited at 14/16. And if I'd done that with this one, let's just make believe, if I said last edited, let's just say 10/32, and then let's pretend it was edited last month, so we'll say 13th March or 13th April. What this allows you to do is, as you move forward through the edit, it allows you to build a picture of when your sequence was edited. Now, let's say, for instance, I was going to do an edit on this based on some client feedback. My thing would be to Control C. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Go back to my work in progress. Control V and paste, and then make sure that I'm on this one. So I've double clicked that, and I'm now going to. This is another thing I'll do. I've now got 2 sequences open which are identical to each other. I want to keep this sequence, so let's just lose that. I want to keep this sequence as it was. So this is forever locked in time. I want to right click and I want to reveal sequence in project and make sure I'm doing the right one. Okay, so that's not right, so I want to close that. Right click and reveal sequence in project. So I want both of these open. This one was edited, when did we say? So these are duplicates, right? So let's say I'm going to edit this one. In fact, I'm going to leave this one locked in time. So I'm going to close these off. I'm going to lock that down, and I'm going to make a folder, and I'm going to call it archive. I'm going to take that one there. I want to make sure I get the right one. Take that one, drop it in the archive. Now that is safe. Now, if I double click my sequence ongoing, close that one down, I know that any changes I make here, let's say, for instance, I come back to this this evening, and it's going to sound a bit mad that I'm doing this, but trust me, it's important. Let's say that I do some edits at 5:30. I know that any edits I did here, I did at 5:30. If for whatever reason, the client comes back and says, that re-edit you've done, can we see it? Can we see it as before? It's a lot easier for me to go, oh, okay, well, I'll go back to the archive. When did it? When was the edit done? So I'll go back to the archive, and there you go. I can view the edit as it was, and I can make changes on it as it was, and I know when it was done. So big tip for any client work. You'll make an edit, you'll upload it to Vimeo or YouTube, or you'll send it via email, or you'll stick it on Frame.io. Feedback comes in. Any amendments that you make on that sequence, don't make it on the original. Make a copy, file the copy away, and then on the new one, the copy that you've made, make the changes and label it. I made the changes at 14:20 on the 12th of April or April of May. So hopefully I'm making sense. Apologise today if my brain's a little bit fried. It's been a long day already, and yeah, I've not stopped editing since last. Well, it feels like forever, and I'm very fortunate because a lot of editors and a lot of people out there are not working at the moment, and I count myself very lucky that I am working right now. So yeah. Anyway, that's a good tip. Make a copy. Label the copy, be as specific as possible, and don't make client amendments on, don't make client alterations on existing work, because guarantee there'll be things that when you upload the new one, they'll want as they were, and if you start making it, it's not a good idea. Okay, so with that in mind, and I got stuck in a massive rabbit hole there. I wanted to show you the project manager, so I'm going to make sure that it's the right one, and I'm just going to label this so V1, and let's pretend this was signed off. So I'm going to put signed off, and it's 17:30. And then I just put these characters in because they break up the text a little bit. 12th May 2020. Cool. Now I've been specific about this, and I know that this is the one that I want. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of my audio meters just temporarily. And then I'm going to go File and Project Manager. Now, Project Manager is a tool within Premiere that will allow you to do exactly as it sounds, manage a project. Now, why do we need to manage a project? Your project might have 8,000 clips in it. And once you've made the edit might be 30 minutes long. I would say the vast majority of those clips you do not need. It depends on the client, blah, blah, blah. But let's say you're being conscious of space and you're trying to make things organized. You know that the clips that are on the timeline you want to keep, everything else you want to lose. Okay, for the sake of saving space and just being a bit, what's the word, organized. So when you open up the project manager, the first thing you'll see is a list of sequences within this project. Now, if I go and scroll down, let's just make. I don't think you can make this project window, so I can't make that any smaller. So I'll just go back to the PC. So it lists the sequences that have been created since the beginning of this project, since when you started this project, and it gives you an option to tick those sequences. Any one of those sequences at any point you can tick, and the project manager will take this into account when it builds your new project. And essentially that's what's happening. What you'll find is the project that is the sequence that is open and on my timeline automatically defaults to having a tick, and that's great because this is the one that I want to keep. This is the one that I want to use going forward when I manage my project. So when you do this, make sure you tick the sequences that are relevant to you and that you want to do this for. And in my case, it's just this one. Let me scroll down and see if there's any more relative ones. I mean, this is a tiny project, and just look how many sequences there are. It's mad how things sort of spiral out of control when you're working on an edit. Okay, so I picked my right sequence. I'm happy with that. When it comes to the resulting project, and basically what you're doing is making a new Premiere project, the resulting project can do one of two things. It can collect files and copy to new location, and basically what that will do is it will make a list, it'll make a database, and it will say, okay, Alex has used XYZ clips on this timeline. We are going to pick those up and move them to a new location. That makes sense, hopefully. Or you can do another thing, which is really useful for future-proofing things. You can consolidate and transcode. And if you have if you have worked on a project which has mixed material, so let's say for instance the bulk of your material is FS7, but also on that timeline there is some GoPro stuff, there is some Phantom stuff, there is some it could be any number of stuff, UGC, so user generated content, all that stuff. The cool thing about Premiere is it will allow you to do that. It doesn't really express an interest in what kind of media it is. It just says, yeah, we assume you know what you're doing. So if you want to put, an 8K red on a GoPro timeline, whatever, we don't care. It's fine. If you know what you're doing, great. I would suggest that's not a good idea, but people do it, and it depends on how much of a rush you are. You can do it. But let's say you had done that and you think, well, okay, so I want this managed project to be a bit more sensible. You can actually pick out, well, we're going to stick to individual clips, and then you can pick a format that's good for you. So DNxHR, DNxHD, that's sort of Avid's proprietary codec. That's what you're going to be working with if you're in Avid. If we go QuickTime, we then get an option to we can go ProRes 422. I mean, who doesn't like ProRes 422? The fact we can now export ProRes 422 from a Windows machine is, I mean, yeah, I knew things weren't right when that happened, and look at us now. I think maybe it was right that we couldn't export ProRes in the past, because everything's gone wrong now. We seem to be living in very strange times. Anyway, having ticked this box, if I was to click go on this, it would look at all the clips that are on my timeline, it would pick them up and it would transcode them into ProRes, and then I would have a sequence with all ProRes material on it, and that's really cool. I would then know that if I wanted to, I could actually just delete all the clips in my other folder, and then I'll have all the clips that are relevant to me within this sequence. It's a really cool thing to do. Destination path, that's basically saying to you, okay, you're going to be creating new material, where do you want that to go? If we say, let's go browse, and I'll just point it towards, you wouldn't really do this, but let's just go videos, and let's leave it there. And then another cool thing, it allows you to calculate the size of, the size of the resulting project. So if I just go calculate, it might do a bit of a thinking. So look at that. This is quite cool. This is my C drive. Okay, so this is a fast SSD, and hence the reason why there's not much space on it. I installed Call of Duty recently. I'm playing online quite a bit because obviously we got more free time than we used to have. So in between editing, I'm playing on the computer, staring at a screen, doing a different thing. There's a joke that I saw once. It's a good screen, bad screen. So when you're working, it's bad screen, and when you're editing, when you're playing Call of Duty, it's good screen. So good screen, bad screen. Anyway, you'll see that this project manager is basically telling me that if I was to complete this operation, the disk space available, the original project size is massive, 392 gig. It would take that project and it would boil it down to 13.7 gigabytes. I mean, there you go. This is an exact example as to why you would want to do this. It's useful as well to hand material off to maybe the online guy, the person who's going to do the colour for you. Any number of reasons why this is useful. A few caveats, a few things to be aware of under options. Good idea to include handles. Basically, that will mean each clip will have a second at either side. So if there is any trims past the point when you manage this, and if you do delete the clips, then it gives you a bit of playroom to sort of make trims if you need to. I wouldn't recommend renaming media files to match clip names. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would keep your clips as they were when the camera created them. And there's a few other things. Convert images, sequences to clips. Preserve alpha, that's useful. If you've got any motion graphics that have got an alpha channel, so they're transparent, that sort of thing. So this is great. And if you've not looked into project manager window to help you organize projects that are completed, then I would encourage you to do so, because it's quite a useful tool. a word to the wise though, sometimes it can take a long time to do what it's supposed to do. And in previous versions of Premiere, it wasn't perfect. It didn't always get it right. It's better than it used to be, but check thoroughly before you delete media files, because what you don't want to do is end up deleting files that you needed. So it's good, but use it with caution. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit cancel. To go back to my slides, just need to check. Had an email. Yep. So just need to check. Okay. Film duration correct. We're not going to worry about that because it's mine. Have you marked the correct export range? Okay, so that's the next thing. If I show you this sequence and zoom out, you're going to find there is a bunch of offcuts. And by offcuts, and this is by no means a tidy edit, these are just things that sort of got chopped off and lost by the wayside. This, by the way, this edit isn't finished. It probably will never be finished. But yeah, what would happen if I was to export this without being conscious of the export range, is that the whole timeline would export. And let's do that. So if I was to go, let's say I'm zoomed in, so I'm not paying attention, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's gonna lose. I don't know what those clips are. Let's just lose those clips. Let's just trim that off there. Ignore the fact that the music doesn't go to the end. This is just gonna be my edit. If I was to just go file, export media. The export window this hasn't changed for the longest time in Premiere. Every time we go to export, this is what we'll normally see. It has been for a long time. And I'd like to, for those of you that are sort of new to Premiere, or getting to grips with it, and you look at this and you think, oh blimey, there's a lot to deal with there. Think about this export window being in two halves. On the left side of this window is what the client will see. So when you deliver your file, this is what they're going to see. And it's quite useful to think about it in those terms, because immediately, if there's anything wrong with your export, it can show you, it can highlight issues. So let me show you one issue that you might see. You don't worry too much about this right now, but if I had, for whatever reason, if I had a mismatch, so I'm just going to go and change some settings here. So we will go H.264, but we want to make, but because this is an edit for social media, you go away, status monitor. I'm not worried about time code in terms of for delivery. It's not an issue for me. But one thing I do need to be aware of is the source range. So it says sequence in out, but I didn't mark that. And so I look here and go, oh blimey, this is actually 18 minutes and 53 seconds. So if I wasn't paying attention and I just hit export, oh, don't do that. If I just hit export, I'd end up with an exported file that's 18 minutes, 53 seconds and 1 frame long. Don't want that. So I'm going to click out of this window. I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to make sure to get my playhead and get my playhead to the absolute last frame, and then I'm going to step it one back and hit O. And the reason I've stepped it one back is because the frames are sort of forward. So the frame when your out point is, it takes the frame before and then it considers the out point at the end of the frame before. So that's, if you end up hitting, if you put your playhead there and hit O, that works. But if you put your playhead here and hit O, you've actually got a 2-frame problem. So yeah, just be aware that you've got it. If you want to get it bang on the money, always take your playhead 1 frame before and then hit O. Okay, that's very, very important if you've got to deliver something specific to a duration. And we're talking frames. If it's even a frame wrong, then you're in trouble. And I'm I'm guilty of doing things like that. That has happened to me, so I'm super extra careful that it doesn't happen, because it's embarrassing and you don't want it to happen. It's just not cool. Okay, so I've now exported my range. I've chosen the range that's going to export. Rather than this time go File, Export, I'm actually just going to go Control M. And now I've hit Control M. That's a shortcut for export. On Mac, the same shortcut, or the equivalent shortcut, is Command M. And the arm from my chair is falling off. I need to fix that. That shows you how long I've been sat on this sodding chair. Now, okay, so I've covered what the left-hand side of this window is talking about. The right-hand side is the more sort of business end. It's the nitty-gritty. This is where you have to make some decisions. Oftentimes, if you're delivering to a broadcaster, you have a spec sheet, and they will often send you a preset. Now, let's say, for instance, I'll use the BBC as an example. Under format, if I want to do a final delivery to the Beeb, I've got to basically go and choose MXF OP1A, and that's MX Mixed Exchange Format Open Pattern 1 Alpha. That's what MXF stands for. So if I go MXF OP1A, you'll see that this is a broadcast standard format. Okay, and then it unlocks a lot of different presets. AVC Intra, AVC Intra 100. For those of you, if you ever want brownie points in a pub quiz and anybody ever says, what was the house format for the World Cup? AVC Intra 100. Everything that came in to us as the host broadcaster, every piece of material, every game, every soundbite, every interview, everything was transcoded upon ingest to AVC Intra 100. And that was what all our edit suites used. There were a couple of exceptions. Now and then people brought cards in from the field, like I said, can we just chuck this on the timeline and get it done? Because obviously sometimes when you work in the deadlines are pretty fierce, so that's why Premiere is cool, because it will just go, yep, okay, well, it's an ABC Intro 100 timeline, stick some stuff on it, we don't care, as long as you know what you're doing on delivery, it's fine. I want to highlight one thing though. The bite-sized stuff, my boss, the person who I'm working for, gave me a preset which I imported, and that preset is this. So when it comes to final delivery, all I need to do is make sure that I get the format right and then hit the preset, and that is stored up here. Now, presets are useful, and if you've made some changes to your export settings, number one, you can import a preset here, and number two, you can export that preset, and it's quite useful to be able to do that. But on this occasion, we're not going to deliver to broadcast. We're just going to send what I would call a viewing copy of this. So to do that, we're going to go H.264, and the preset for high bitrate. Now, bitrate is the amount of data that's within a frame. So, if it's a very busy frame, it's going to have a higher bitrate than if it's a low frame. It's a frame of an interview that's not much is talking. It depends how you want to deal with it. But if you've got to upload this or email it and stuff, you want a lower bitrate. Basically, because that will decrease the file size. So the higher the bitrate, the higher the file size, and the higher the quality. I'm going to leave it on the high bitrate, but I'm going to show you a couple of things that sometimes I will do to lower the bitrate for an approval copy, which is what this is. So having selected H.264 as my format, I'm going to leave preset alone, and I'm going to go and make my own. You'll see that in the export window, you've got a number of tabs. So you've got tabs for effects, and audio, and captions, and publish. And these are all things that you can configure for yourself to make your life easier when it comes to exporting. Under video, I'm just going to close these windows down and show you the different options you've got when it comes to choosing how you export your video. Now remember, video is H.264, and H.264 is the predominant format for video on the web. 99% of video on the web is H.264, and the reason for that is it's a very clever compression ratio. It's a very, very clever way of compressing video. It basically it's a good trade-off between low file size and high quality, and there's a whole science behind why H.264 is good. By the way, if you ever wondered why codecs are called codecs, and this is what we're talking about here, basically codec is it's a portmanteau word: compression, decompression, codec. And codecs, the only reason codecs exist is because we need to be able to compress video, because if you sent everything out as it was recorded, depending on what you recorded it on, it just wouldn't work. The internet wouldn't work. If we didn't have codecs and compression, the internet wouldn't work. And thank the Lord the internet does work, because we're in a bad position anyway, but if we didn't have the internet, well, pack your ball and go home, and stay home and do nothing. And what would you do? I don't know what you do. Nothing. Anyway, I want to go, where am I going to go? Bitrate settings. Now this, of all the things to worry about when you do a viewing copy, bitrate is one of the things that you should be worried about. Now, if I zoom in here, when it comes to bitrate encoding, if I click this drop down, it gives us 3 options. CBR stands for constant bitrate. VBR stands for variable bitrate, and you've got two options for variable bitrate. When you choose CBR, which is what I'm going to choose here, you put a ceiling on a bitrate. So if a shot gets really busy, if there's loads of stuff going on, it won't give it any more. It won't assign any more bits to that shot. There is a really great video I will show you. I will try and link in the comments for our YouTube channel, that explains about bitrate. This guy called Tom, what's his face? Can't remember his name. I met him at YouTube place. He's a really nice guy. And I share this video a lot because it's for me. I've never seen bitrate described any better than this. Anyway, it basically puts a lid on the bitrate. So it basically says, right, okay, so if things get busy, we won't assign any more bitrates. So it forces it to cap it at a certain level. Now for viewing copies, I've found that if you lower this down to 5. So I'm gonna say my target bitrate is 5. It gives you actually an estimated file size of 95 megabits. So if I whiz that back up to 10, so half the bitrate is half the file size. And actually, because H.264 is such a good and efficient codec and format, it's negligible, the difference. And if this is a viewing copy anyway, then yeah, I found that sticking this down to 5 works quite well. If this was your final master, then you wouldn't do that, but this is a viewing copy, that's what this is. And so there you go, there's your bitrate settings. Variable bitrate works a little bit different. It will run a pass across the sequence, and it will look where it can make savings. So if there's a large part of the sequence where there's somebody sat down, it's an interview talking head, it can make significant savings with the way it compresses those shots versus shots where there's a lot going on. And the example that's used a lot is like where there's lots of confetti and there's loads of stuff going on like that. When you've got shots like that, it needs to assign more bitrate to that shot in order for it not to fall apart and for you to see macro blocking and for it to just start looking terrible. All TV in the UK is compressed to a certain degree, and you'll notice it when you see shots that are busy. So shots of crowds, shots of confetti, that sort of thing. So if if you're sort of new to this theory of compression, take a look. Look at busy shots and really look at them and see. Is this shot lesser quality than the static interview shot? And you'll start to get an appreciation about how things get compressed. So VBR one pass, it allows you to assign a bitrate, and it will run a scan across that file, and it will compress it as best it can. And VBR 2 pass will run across twice, but both of these, VBR 1 and 2, take more time. And because this is a viewing copy, I'm not interested in things taking longer for the sake of quality. I just want the client to eyeball it, come back with feedback, and tell me what's wrong about it, which is what always happens. So I picked CBR 5. You then need to decide what output name. So if I click output, it says where do you want it to go. Let's go, and again, we shouldn't do this, but we're just going to stick it in videos. I'll just put viewing copies. In fact, you know what? why not show you the right way to do it? We'll go to my storage there, and I think maybe on the desktop I put it. Desktop. Yeah. Okay. So on the desktop at the beginning of our webinars, all 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks ago, whatever it was, and that was my wedding video. I was married 9 years on the 6th of May, and I was still cutting the wedding video now. It's not ideal. Inside my folder structure I've got here, I've got projects and I've got media. Inside media, I've got a folder that I've made for deliveries. Inside that folder for deliveries, you can see I've got one called viewing copies. Now that's what this is. This is a viewing copy. So I'll drop it in there and click save. And I'll make sure that it's got an appropriate title. And you'll see that it inherits the title of the sequence by default, which to me, this isn't signed off. I'm going to say viewing copy. And then it says the time and it says the date. That's perfect. I'll hit save and I'll export. I'm just going to see if there's anybody watching. You've had not any questions. We've got 4 watching. Yeah, that's fine. So this will now run through its export process. Okay. Yeah, so apologies for that. I just had a thing saying it's buffering. Oh, yeah, drop frames. Apologies for that. Just let me just check one thing. Liz, are you on Netflix or anything? Are you on Netflix using the internet? Oh, okay, just checking. There you go. That's the sort of pain of working from home. Yeah. So that's sort of that covered. There's a lot more that we can talk about regarding formats and codecs and everything else. And I just want to cover it off, I guess. I want to show. Let's say that this was our final thing, and we wanted to deliver this to the client. I would recommend ProRes as an export setting. So if I go and if we now had the round of amendments and it's all good. If I go Control M again, this time with my setting, it seems with my setting, I'm going to ask it to go QuickTime as my wrapper, and this opens a bit of a box of tricks when it comes to codecs and wrappers and that kind of thing. Basically, you can think of formats, and I've picked QuickTime as my format. As if you think about them being as like a cardboard box, right? So the format is the cardboard box, and the codec is the contents within that box. That's the way I think about it. So you've got formats and you've got codecs. When you pick QuickTime as your format, if I scroll down, I'm going to ignore all these presets here. I'm going to scroll down to my video, and basically I'm going to open up video codec, and because I've picked QuickTime as my wrapper, as my format, I now get options under which codec I would like to place in that box. If this is going to be for archive purposes, or if this is for delivery purposes, ProRes 422HQ is good. You can go higher, but it's sort of placebo quality, and there's no point going higher than the original material, so because you're just wasting space. If I'm happy with this, I'll go ProRes HQ, and then this is just an example. One problem you'll see straight away is if we look over at my this side of the export window, I can see that if I deliver this to the client, they're gonna get black bars top and bottom, so that's not acceptable. So under that, to deal with that issue, I've gone video basic video settings, and I'm going to click match source, and then it basically it looks at the sequence and it matches the material to the sequence. So that's perfect. And now I've got my video codec, ProRes HQ 422, all good. And then these things I'm happy with. So there's lots more to talk about when it comes to this. One of this as well, if this is your final export, and this is going to go to the client, and this is going to be your master copy, hit maximum render quality, and this is to do as if you've scaled down any images that are larger than your sequence. Anyway, I'm going to tick that. I'm going to this time go to save as, and this time this is signed off, and I'm going to drop this in masters. So I'm going to double click there, hit save, and hit export. So we come to the end of our 6 episodes for the Scan MediaCity Training webinar. I've really enjoyed doing these. I need to get back to my edit. Apologies if this one was a bit sort of all over the place. I would like more time to do these. If anybody's interested, if you do in the comments, if you want to, there's any elements, if there's any areas of Side Premiere that you want me to talk about, I'm really happy to talk about that. Just let me know. I want to thank Scan for getting me involved. I want to say a little bit of an advert for the MediaCity Training. We've got a really nice training centre in Media City. Obviously, right now it's not going to happen. The rules won't permit us to do face-to-face training, that kind of thing. But hopefully, when things get back to normal, it will still be open, and we'll still be able to bring people in and do training. The kit we use, we've got 6 Intel Skull Canyon NUCs. These are great little machines. All got from Scan Pro Video. It were fantastic in suggesting and sourcing and configuring these builds. 6 workstations. I've worked offline edits on these. They're absolutely wonderful. The system that you see me working on right now is a Scan Pro Video 3XS 4K video build. And you can see the stats. It's Intel i9, it's 64 gig RAM, 2060 GPU, really fast hard drives. It's got a 6 terabyte general storage. I've actually used that as project storage because it's perfect for that kind of thing. My computer's being a bit funny. The monitors we use are BenQ monitors, Pro Video monitors. They are fabulous. I love these monitors. Cannot recommend them high enough. Yeah, they're great. Very, very cost effective. Very, very good high quality displays. Highly recommend. The keyboard that you can see on the desk is a Logic Keys shortcut keyboard. Really good, really like it. All these things obviously available from Scan, so if you're interested, post some comments, we can send you some links, whatever. And yeah, these are some the streaming kit we've used. I think we've had a bit of a problem with the stream today. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's a Roland VR1 HD. The camera that you can see is a Sony FS7. The camera that I'm coming to you on this recording from, and then the mic on the desk is a Rode NTG1. And yeah, just finally, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. I expect us to do some more, so if you've enjoyed these, then thanks very much, and we will see you again. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope everything goes well for you in the future. Stay safe.